The Penn State Nittany Lions are 11-11 over the last 2 years. 2022 is all about getting the program back on track for Coach James Franklin. I'm Steven Lasson. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. We've got more great and in-depth college football coverage coming all season. Before we preview 2022 season for Penn State, let's take a look back at last season. This is a team that started 5-0, and then there was the game at Iowa that Penn State lost in a close one. And Penn State had some injuries in that game. Quarterback Sean Clifford, there were some guys on defense that were banged up. That game started a 2-6 finish down the stretch for Penn State. On the positive side for Penn State, 4 of those losses came by 1 score. So and within those losses were close defeats to Michigan and Michigan State and Iowa. So the Nittany Lions weren't too far from beating some of the Big Ten's better teams, but still 7-6 last year, 5-0 start, 2-6 finish down the stretch. Obviously a lot of work for Penn State to do to get back on track this year. 6 returning starters are back on offense this season for Penn State. This is a group that averaged only 25 points a game last year and also 5.3 yards per play. So clearly, this is an offense that needs to improve in 2022. The good news is Sean Clifford is back at quarterback. He's a third-year starter for Penn State. On the flip side of things, he was 10th in the Big Ten in yards per attempt and 9th in the conference in quarterback rating, and those were Big Ten games. So within the conference, Clifford has room to play a lot better, but some of that's not his fault. We look back at last season, the offensive line was a big question mark for Penn State. It allowed 34 sacks. They also averaged less than 3 yards per carry in Big Ten games. They did not have a 100-yard rusher last season. So I think coming into this season, Clifford's experience is a huge plus. Penn State has great receivers, even though Jahan Dotson is gone, Parker Washington, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Mitchell Tinsley, the Western Kentucky transfer, a great trio of weapons. You add in Kevon Lee is back at running back, Nick Singleton, a 5-star freshman. Penn State has weapons. It really all comes down to an offensive line that returns only 2 starters and really struggled last season. Penn State's defense also returns 6 starters. The good news for Penn State is this is a group that has consistently ranked near the top of the Big Ten under Coach James Franklin. And looking ahead to this season, I think there are some reasons to believe that they can do that once again. They are losing quite a bit along the line of scrimmage. Ebiketie, the defensive end, is gone. The linebacker group was hit hard by losses. The good news for Penn State, though, is they have recruited well, and you look at what they bring back on defense, getting Adisa Isaac, a potential starter at defensive end. PJ Mustipher, who was hurt in the game against Iowa, is back. So they are getting some guys back along the line of scrimmage who should be able to play right away. Curtis Jacobs will be the new face of the linebacker group. 2 starters are back in the secondary, Joey Porter Jr. at cornerback, also safety Jair Brown. Both of those players could be among the Big Ten's best at their position. Last year, Penn State gave up 17.3 points a game, ranked 3rd in the Big Ten in yards per play. They did struggle a bit against the run, so that's a challenge for new defensive coordinator Manny Diaz. Reload up front and continue to be aggressive, which has been a hallmark of Manny Diaz's defenses. So they got to get better against the run and restock in the front 7. But optimistically, this is a group that has traditionally been very good under James Franklin. 3 key transfers to keep in mind for Penn State. We mentioned Mitchell Tinsley in the offensive section. He could be a weapon for Penn State this year in the passing game. Hunter Norzad, a transfer from Cornell, should help along the offensive line as a starter or depth. And also Robinson could help the pass rush there. He's transferring in from Maryland, may fit in somewhere as a pass rusher or a potential rotational player for Penn State's defense this season. The schedule jumps out right away because we're going to find out how good Penn State is in the month of September. They open up at Purdue, also play Auburn on the road. So the month of September presents some challenges for Penn State, but in Big Ten play, they have to go to Michigan, but Ohio State and Michigan State come to Happy Valley next year. So some good and some bad, but a tough start to the season for Penn State. Finally, the over-under for Penn State is 8.5 coming into this season. If you start thinking about the tiers in the Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan are at the top. If Penn State is able to get back into that top 15 conversation, get past Michigan State, it's going to be on the strength of a couple things. They've got to get better play from the offensive line. In turn, Sean Clifford has to play better at quarterback, and they have to restock the front seven on defense. I think this Penn State team can be a top 25 team this year. There are some questions, but I think they fit into that second tier in the Big Ten this season.